We like to think of ourselves as the crown of evolution, a species that always stood at the top of the food chain. But the truth is far more disturbing. For most of our history, humans weren't the hunters. Humans were prey. For millions of years, our ancestors lived in constant fear, not of other tribes, not of natural disasters, but of animals that saw them as nothing more than another meal. Today, we're breaking down the creatures that literally hunted humans, and the evidence scientists are still uncovering today. Who was humanity's first predator? For decades, anthropologists believed Homo habilis, one of the earliest members of our genus, marked the exact moment humans stopped being prey and became predators. It was thought this species was the first to use stone tools and the first to eat meat. But new research has flipped that picture upside down. It turns out another species, African Homo erectus, lived alongside Homo habilis around 2 million years ago. That raised a new question. Which of the two was actually making tools and eating hunted meat? And which one was the prey? In 2025, a team of researchers used artificial intelligence to analyze bite marks on fossilized hominin bones. The results shocked even experienced anthropologists. A large portion of known Homo habilis remains show signs of carnivore damage, including the 2 best-preserved skulls of the species found at Olduvai Gorge. The question scientists are still working through: did these marks appear after death, when a scavenger picked apart an already dead body? Or did a top predator kill this early human outright? Leopards, the most precise killers. Compared to other predators, leopards might not seem like the biggest or scariest on the surface, but they were likely the most consistent and effective enemy early hominins ever faced. Modern leopards still hunt baboons, monkeys, chimpanzees, and occasionally even gorillas. Their taste for primates almost certainly extended to our ancestors over the past 3 million years. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence is the skull of a Paranthropus robustus child found in South Africa. The skull clearly shows 2 puncture marks. Scientist Charles Brain matched the spacing and shape of these punctures to the lower jaw of an ancient African leopard. The match was exact. The most likely scenario is chilling in its simplicity. The child was stalked, grabbed by the skull, and dragged some distance away before being eaten. Leopards today still have the habit of hauling prey up into trees, away from other predators and scavengers, so they can eat in peace without competition. The Taung Child and a sky full of danger. At the dawn of the Pleistocene, roughly 2.8 million years ago, a young Australopithecus africanus child died. Its damaged, scratched skull was discovered in 1924, alongside the mangled bones of other small and medium-sized animals. Because of its proximity to the town of Taung in South Africa, the skeleton became known as the Taung Child. For a long time, researchers struggled to identify exactly which predator was responsible. There were almost no tooth marks on the skull, which ruled out most ground-based predators. Instead, they found puncture marks characteristic of large birds of prey. The best explanation for this discovery is an ancient, massive raptor. The child was carried up into the air and taken somewhere safe to be eaten. This was likely just one of many such meals for the bird. The surrounding site contained the remains of dozens of other small and medium-sized animals. Adult humans could theoretically feel relatively safe from this kind of predator, but the ground hid its own horrors. Cave hyenas, bone-crushing machines. Forget the modern image of the hyena as a cowardly scavenger. The Ice Age cave hyena was significantly larger than its descendants, more powerful than wolves, and rivaled even some lions of its time. The jaw strength of these animals is staggering. A single adult cave hyena could single-handedly take down a 1-year-old mastodon weighing over a ton. A pack could bring down a 9-year-old mastodon weighing 2 tons. If a predator could tear apart a mastodon, a human was nothing more than an easy snack. In a cave in Morocco, researchers found the remains of an ancient hominin over 500,000 years old. The bone was so badly damaged and chewed that scientists couldn't even confidently identify it for a long time. The culprit wasn't a big cat, it was hyenas. The bite marks left no room for doubt. And this wasn't an isolated case. Hyena dens containing human remains have been found all over the world, in China, Spain, and Morocco. These predators didn't just attack people. They dragged victims back to their own dens and finished eating them there, out of reach of competitors. Saber-toothed cats, precise and deadly. If hyenas represented brute force, saber-toothed cats represented surgical precision. Their massive canines were not shaped by evolution for gnawing bone or wrestling with prey for long periods. They were the perfect tool for a single, precise, lethal bite to the throat or the belly. Death came almost instantly. Here's an interesting detail about these predators. They didn't finish their kills. Researchers estimate a single saber-toothed cat consumed only about a third of a carcass on average before abandoning it and heading off to hunt again. The rest went to scavengers, and our ancestors were frequently among them. It's important to understand one thing here. Early humans weren't always purely victims in this story. Sometimes they were competitors fighting over leftover food. Picture a group of hominins cautiously approaching a mammoth carcass, just abandoned by a saber-toothed cat, racing to reach the meat before the hyenas arrived. This wasn't a lifestyle choice. It was a daily balancing act on the edge of survival. Crocodiles, patient ambush hunters. Water was no less dangerous than land. Ancient African lakes were home to crocodiles of staggering size, far larger than any crocodile alive today. One such species grew to over 8 meters long, bigger than the largest crocodile currently held in captivity. This predator lived in the same lakes where remains of early hominins have been found, and scientists believe our ancestors made up a significant portion of its diet. Its hunting method was simple and nearly foolproof. Lie in wait underwater near the shore. Watch for a thirsty animal to approach for a drink, then strike with a speed that gave the victim no chance to register what was happening. In a gorge in Tanzania, researchers found the remains of an ancient crocodile that scientists literally named the man-eater, based on the meaning of its species name. Found alongside its bones were the remains of 2 different species of ancient hominins, both living in that exact place at that exact time. Other hunters worth remembering. The list of predators early humans had to reckon with doesn't end there. Bears, giant snakes, Komodo dragons, and even other hominin species posed real threats as well. Some researchers believe that fear of predators, particularly venomous snakes, may have been one of the driving forces behind the development of sharper eyesight and even larger brains in early primates. The ability to quickly recognize a dangerous shape hidden in grass or leaves saved lives, and that ability was passed down from generation to generation. When humans started changing the rules. The balance of power began shifting around 2 million years ago. Researchers found evidence that our ancestors were hunting small and medium-sized animals, gazelles, antelope. Slightly earlier, the first stone tools appeared, allowing early humans to bypass their natural biological limitations. The real turning point came when humans began interacting with megafauna not just as prey, but as hunters. In 2024, researchers in Tanzania found evidence that hominins had butchered the carcass of an Elephas reki, an animal nearly twice the size of a modern African elephant, weighing up to 6 tons. The find dates to 1.8 million years ago, far earlier than previously estimated for the start of human interaction with giant animals. This doesn't mean humans suddenly started regularly hunting elephants. Most likely, our ancestors were scavenging carcasses that were already dead, processing them with stone tools. But the moment is symbolic. For the first time, a group of small, vulnerable hominins looked at a giant and saw not just a threat, but a key to their own survival. Over time, as Homo sapiens and Neanderthals gained more sophisticated tools and weapons, the balance of power began tipping in humanity's favor. Evidence emerged of full-scale hunting of mammoths and other large Ice Age mammals, especially in North America and Siberia. Spear points belonging to Paleo-Indian Clovis hunters are regularly found alongside the remains of mammoths and giant bison, pointing to systematic, not accidental, hunting of giants. Researchers also believe human activity was one of the key drivers behind megafauna extinction. Analysis of body size in African mammals shows that as early as 125,000 years ago, average animal size was already significantly smaller than expected, meaning early humans were already impacting the continent's ecosystem at that point. By the time Homo sapiens reached the Americas with sophisticated long-range weapons, extinctions of large species became faster and far more targeted toward the biggest animals. Why this matters. Human history isn't a straight line from helpless prey to all-powerful predator. It's a long, painful, uneven struggle for survival, where the roles kept shifting back and forth. Thousands of generations of our ancestors lived in a world where a single moment of carelessness could end in the jaws of a hyena, the talons of an eagle, the teeth of a leopard, or the bite of a crocodile. That constant pressure may be exactly what shaped who we eventually became. Creatures who learned to stick together, pass down knowledge of danger, build shelter, and craft weapons. Collective survival wasn't just a convenient strategy. It was the only way not to become someone's dinner. And when we look at cave paintings showing people with spears facing massive beasts, it's worth remembering. These paintings aren't about humanity's total dominance over nature. They're about the brutal, exhausting struggle of a species that spent a very long time balanced on the edge of becoming prey instead of predator. We like to think of ourselves as the crown of evolution, the final and inevitable result of millions of years of progress. But the truth is far more complicated, far less comfortable, and far more unsettling than that reassuring story. We didn't survive because we were always the strongest. We survived because we learned to survive together, step by step, generation by generation, clawing our way out of the jaws of predators who once saw us not as the top of the food chain, but as just another meal.